Hi, very glad to see you on the channel. Before you start listening to the story, write in the comments whether you like the voice on the video. I pulled into the driveway just after sunset, killing the engine as I let out a slow breath. The house stood in front of me, bathed in the soft glow of the porch lights, exactly as I'd left it. But something fell off. Maybe it was just exhaustion from the long flight back, or maybe it was that strange, nagging feeling in my gut that had been there ever since Chelsea started acting different. 3 weeks. That's how long I had been gone. A work conference in Seattle had turned into an extended business trip, meetings stretching longer than expected, keeping me across the country while Chelsea stayed home. She had been understanding, supportive even, telling me it would be good for her too. Time to focus on her travel blog, get some new content ready, plan her next big trip. But something about the way she said it didn't sit right with me. I grabbed my suitcase and stepped out of the car, the night air cool against my skin. As I approached the door, I noticed it was unlocked. My brow furrowed. Chelsea was always careful about locking up, even when she was home. I stepped inside, shutting the door behind me, and immediately noticed a change. The air smelled different. Not bad, not necessarily unfamiliar, but not ours. Like a mix of expensive hotel soap and something faintly musky, something that didn't belong here. I set my bag down in the entryway, scanning the living room. Everything was in place, yet felt staged. Like someone had taken the time to make sure it looked like home, but didn't actually live in it. The throw pillows on the couch were too neatly arranged. The coffee table was wiped spotless. The usual signs of Chelsea's presence, her half-empty coffee mug, a sweater draped over the chair, a notebook with half-scribbled ideas, were missing. My stomach tightened. I walked toward the kitchen, my eyes landing on a stack of mail on the counter. Bills, magazines, a few packages. Normal. But one envelope stood out, an Airbnb receipt. I picked it up, scanning the details. A rental, in our own city, for the past 2 weeks. My pulse ticked up. Chelsea hadn't mentioned anything about renting a place. Why would she? We had a perfectly good home. If she needed quiet to work, she could go to a cafe, a library, anywhere. But an Airbnb? That made no sense. I set the receipt down carefully, inhaling slowly through my nose. I wasn't going to jump to conclusions. There could be an explanation. Maybe she had rented it for a friend. Maybe it was some collaboration for her blog. I just needed to ask her. Footsteps on the stairs made me turn. Chelsea stood at the top, dressed in a loose t-shirt and shorts, her damp hair hanging over one shoulder. For a brief second, her eyes widened in surprise, too surprised, before she quickly composed herself and smiled. "Nathan," she said, coming down the steps quickly. "You're home early." I forced a small smile. Flight landed ahead of schedule. She wrapped her arms around me in a tight hug, but there was something in her grip that felt forced, like she was making sure I felt the affection rather than giving it naturally. When she pulled back, she tucked her hair behind her ear, glancing around as if double-checking the house. "I missed you," she said, her voice warm but careful. I nodded. "Missed you too." I studied her face, looking for any cracks, any tells. "Everything good while I was gone?" She let out a small laugh. "Yeah, of course. Just busy with the blog, you know how it is. I actually got a lot done." Lie. She was talking too fast, filling the space before I could ask anything else. I gestured toward the counter. I saw the Airbnb receipt. Her smile didn't falter, but I caught the slight stiffening in her shoulders. "Oh, yeah, that." She waved a hand dismissively. "It was just for work. I needed a quiet place to write without distractions." I narrowed my eyes. "You couldn't do that here?" She pouted playfully. "You know me. I get too easily distracted at home. Sometimes I just need a change of scenery." Something about the way she said it, too casual, too rehearsed, made my stomach twist. I nodded slowly, pretending to accept her answer. "Makes sense." She visibly relaxed. "Come on," she said, tugging my hand. "Let's sit down. Tell me all about your trip." I let her pull me toward the couch, playing along, pretending everything was fine. But my mind was already racing. Chelsea was lying. I just didn't know why. Yet. The next morning, Chelsea woke up before me, which was unusual. She was never a morning person. Normally, I'd have to nudge her awake, bribing her with coffee just to get her out of bed. But today, I woke up to the sound of cabinets opening and closing downstairs. I stayed in bed for a moment, staring at the ceiling, thinking about last night. About how she had smiled too much, laughed too easily, deflected every question with just the right amount of charm. If I hadn't noticed the Airbnb receipt, I probably wouldn't have thought twice about it. But now, the doubt was there. And once doubt creeps in, it doesn't go away. I got up, pulled on a t-shirt, and made my way downstairs. Chelsea was in the kitchen, pouring coffee, scrolling through her phone. She glanced up when she saw me and smiled. "Morning." I made coffee. I walked over, grabbing a mug. "You're up early." She shrugged. "Had some ideas for the blog. Figured I'd get a head start before I lost motivation." Lie. I sipped my coffee, watching her over the rim of my mug. She was scrolling with purpose, not casually, not absent-mindedly. She was checking something. I set my mug down and leaned against the counter. "Anything exciting planned today?" She hesitated just for a second before shaking her head. "Just work. Might go to a cafe for a few hours." "Not another Airbnb?" She let out a light laugh, but I saw the tension in her shoulders. "No, not today." She was lying again. I just didn't know what about yet. I let the conversation drop, pretending to go about my morning like everything was fine. But as soon as Chelsea went upstairs to shower, I started searching. If she had been staying in an Airbnb, she had to have something from it. Keys, a receipt, anything. I checked the front hall table, where she usually tossed random things. Nothing. I opened the drawer where she kept old mail, flipped through the envelopes. Still nothing. Then I noticed her travel backpack sitting near the door, the one she always took when she went on trips. It wasn't unusual for it to be there. She grabbed it all the time when she went out to work from a cafe. But something about it caught my eye. The straps were twisted, the front pocket half-zipped like it had been shoved down in a hurry. I glanced toward the stairs, listening for the sound of the shower, still running. Then I crouched down and unzipped the front pocket. My fingers brushed against something small and rectangular. I pulled it out and felt my stomach tighten. A neatly wrapped gift box. I turned it over in my hands, my pulse ticking up. It was wrapped in matte black paper, the kind of sleek, minimalist packaging that came from high-end stores. There was a tag attached. To Jay. I stared at it, my mind spinning. G? Who the hell was Jay? My first instinct was that it was for me. But that made no sense. My birthday wasn't for another 6 months, and Chelsea had never randomly gifted me anything just because. She liked planning things, anniversaries, holidays, special occasions. A mystery gift in her bag with an initial that wasn't mine? That wasn't meant for me. I clenched my jaw, flipping the box over. It was still sealed, unopened. I inhaled slowly. If Chelsea had hidden this, it was because she didn't want me to see it. And if she didn't want me to see it, it wasn't because it was something innocent. I slipped a finger under the tape, peeled it open carefully, and lifted the lid. Inside was a luxury leather wallet. Expensive, custom engraved, with the initials JT. A sharp, cold anger settled in my chest. She had bought another man a gift. Not just any gift, but something thoughtful, personal. A leather wallet with his initials engraved. I gripped the box tightly, my mind racing. Who was JT? A friend? A coworker? Someone from her past? The worst part was that I had no idea, because until now, I had never needed to ask. I stared at the wallet, debating my next move. I could go upstairs right now, confront her, demand an explanation. But she would lie. She would smile, laugh, tell me it was nothing. She would twist the truth until I started to doubt myself. No, I wasn't giving her that chance. Instead, I carefully removed the wallet from the box, slipped it into my pocket, and replaced it with something else. My old, beat-up wallet from college. The one with the peeling leather and the torn inner pocket. The one I had been meaning to throw away for years. I packed it neatly back into the box, rewrapped it, and slid it back in her bag exactly the way I found it. By the time she opened it, it would be too late. I zipped up her bag and stood, my pulse steady now. Chelsea had been lying to me, and now I was going to find out why. Chelsea was still asleep when I woke up the next morning. I lay in bed for a few minutes, staring at the ceiling, the memory of last night running through my head on a loop. The too perfect house, the Airbnb receipt, the way she had over-explained everything. The way she had relaxed once she thought I believed her. I needed answers. I got up quietly, moving carefully so I wouldn't wake her. If she caught me snooping, she'd have an excuse ready. She always did. I wasn't going to give her that chance. I started in the kitchen, checking her usual spots. Chelsea wasn't the type to be careless, but she was comfortable. She hadn't expected me home early, which meant there was a chance she had left something behind. And then I found it. Tucked behind a few books in the living room cabinet was a small, wrapped box. I pulled it out slowly, my pulse picking up. The wrapping was crisp, untorn, like it had been hidden before it could be given to someone. I turned it over in my hands, searching for a tag. To CC. Not in. My grip tightened. I peeled back the paper carefully, exposing a sleek black box underneath. I flipped it open, and my stomach twisted. A watch. A high-end, expensive-looking men's watch. Not mine. I exhaled through my nose, staring at it, my mind spinning. Chelsea hadn't mentioned anything about a gift. There had been no birthday parties, no anniversaries. And the tag, C, it wasn't addressed to me. I set the box down, rolling my jaw. My first instinct was to storm upstairs, wake her up, demand an explanation. But I already knew how that would play out. She would act confused, pretend it was for me, make up a reason why she hadn't given it to me yet. Or worse, she'd flip it back on me. Why are you going through my things, Nathan? Don't you trust me? No, I wasn't going to confront her. I was going to make sure she never got to give this to him. I picked up the watch and headed to the garage. I pulled out my old toolbox, grabbed a tiny screwdriver, and carefully removed the back panel. The gears inside gleamed delicate and perfect. Not for long. I reached for an old bottle of glue and carefully squeezed a few drops onto the mechanisms, watching as it seeped into the tiny spaces. I screwed the panel back on, wiping away any excess glue before polishing the watch with the edge of my shirt. From the outside, it looked untouched. Let her give this to him. I put the watch back in its box, rewrapped the paper, and placed it exactly where I'd found it. Then I walked back to the kitchen, poured myself a cup of coffee, and sat at the table waiting. An hour later, Chelsea came downstairs, yawning as she stretched. "Morning," she mumbled, heading straight for the coffee maker. I watched her carefully. "Sleep well." She nodded, pouring her cup. "Yeah, you." I took a slow sip. Better than I expected. She smiled at me, easy, comfortable. She still thought everything was normal. She had no idea that the game had already started. For the rest of the day, I acted like nothing had changed. I played the role of the loving husband, listened to her talk about her latest blog post, nodded as she rambled about upcoming travel plans. I didn't bring up the Airbnb, didn't mention the watch. I let her think she was still in control. That night, after she fell asleep, I checked the cabinet again. The box was gone. She had taken it. I stood there in the dark, my heartbeat steady, my hands resting at my sides. I had no idea when she planned to give it to him, but when she did, he'd find himself with a very expensive piece of junk. And Chelsea? She wouldn't have a clue. Not yet. Chelsea's routine didn't change. That was the first thing I noticed. If she was hiding something, she wasn't panicking. She wasn't sneaking around, acting guilty, or waiting for the right moment to explain away the missing gift. That meant one thing. She thought she had covered her tracks. I played along. The next few days, I watched her carefully, keeping mental notes of every little detail. She still left the house at random hours, claiming she needed inspiration for her blog. Still spent long afternoons writing at cafes, coming home with barely a sentence typed. Still smiled at me like nothing had changed, like she wasn't lying to my face every time she opened her mouth. But now I was looking closer. I started checking her phone when she left it unattended. She had always been careful, but not too careful, just enough to make sure I never had a reason to suspect her. Her messages were normal. Too normal. No conversations that stood out, no suspicious names, no evidence of anything. But then I checked her email. There it was. A booking confirmation from Airbnb. Another one. My jaw clenched as I read the details. A different location this time, but still within the city. A single night stay. Booked for tomorrow. I stared at the screen, my pulse steady, my mind already working through my next move. If I confronted her now, she'd have an excuse. A meeting with a brand. A collaboration. Something designed to make me feel stupid for questioning her. No, I wasn't going to accuse her. I was going to catch her. The next morning, I left for work like usual, kissing her goodbye, pretending everything was fine. But I didn't go to the office. I waited. At noon, Chelsea left the house, dressed up more than usual, wearing that effortless, I'm not trying but I look perfect kind of outfit. She drove downtown, heading toward the Airbnb location. I followed at a distance, staying 3 cars behind her, watching as she pulled into the parking garage. She didn't hesitate, didn't check her phone, didn't act like someone trying to cover her tracks. She walked inside, head high, as if this was just another normal day. I parked down the street, gripping the wheel. This was it. My phone buzzed. A text from Chelsea. Hey, just working on my next blog post. Love you. Lie. I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to stay calm. I could go inside right now, demand answers, blow everything up in one impulsive move. But I didn't want answers. I wanted proof. I pulled up the Airbnb app on my phone, created a fake profile, and booked the same property for next week. If Chelsea was using these places to sneak around, she had a pattern, and patterns could be tracked. By the time I got home that evening, she was already back, sitting on the couch, legs curled under her, smiling at me like she hadn't spent the afternoon lying through her teeth. Hey babe, she said brightly. How was work? I set my keys down, studying her. Busy. You? She stretched, letting out a soft sigh. Exhausting. Spent all day writing. Lie. I nodded slowly. But you got a lot done. She grinned. So much. Can't wait for you to read it. I smirked, leaning down to kiss her temple. Can't wait either. She had no idea. No idea that I had followed her. No idea that I had booked the same Airbnb. No idea that, next week, I'd be in her secret place. And when I did, she wouldn't be able to lie her way out of it. Chelsea didn't suspect a thing. She still kissed me goodbye in the mornings, still texted me little updates throughout the day, still curled up next to me at night, like nothing had changed. She had no idea I had booked the same Airbnb she was using. No idea that in just a few days I would be standing in the exact place she had been lying to me from. I had one job now, wait. The reservation was set. Same property, same layout, same opportunity to uncover the truth. I didn't know who she was meeting there, but soon I wouldn't have to guess. In the meantime, I watched her. She was careful. I'd give her that. Her patterns weren't obvious. She didn't sneak out at strange hours or make excuses that didn't add up. She kept everything casual, effortless. Just another day in the life of a travel blogger. But there were cracks. One afternoon, I noticed her packing a bag, a small overnight duffel she rarely used. When I walked into the bedroom, she zipped it shut quickly, tossing it onto the bed like it was nothing. I leaned against the doorframe. Going somewhere? She smiled too easily. Oh, just heading to that Airbnb again. Thought I'd stay overnight this time. Get some writing done without distractions. A perfect answer. I nodded slowly. That makes sense. She tilted her head. You okay? I smirked. Yeah, just wish I had a job where I could stay in fancy rentals all day. She laughed, rolling her eyes. Trust me, it's not as glamorous as it sounds. Lie. I let her leave without pressing further. I already had what I needed. The next day, it was my turn. I checked into the Airbnb under my fake profile, my pulse steady as I stepped inside. It was a nice place, minimalist, modern, with a cozy sitting area and an oversized bed. Nothing about it screamed romantic getaway, but that was what made it perfect. No suspicion. No obvious signs. Just a workspace. I started searching. At first, everything seemed normal. Fresh towels, clean sheets, the usual Airbnb setup. But then I found something. A bobby pin. Not a big deal on its own, but it was on the nightstand, sitting just behind the lamp like it had been forgotten in a rush. I picked it up, turning it over in my fingers. Chelsea never left things behind. I checked the trash next. Nothing unusual. But when I opened the bathroom drawer, I found a travel-sized bottle of perfume. Her perfume. My grip tightened. She had been here. Not just writing, not just working, but comfortable enough to leave things behind. I wasn't angry. Not yet. Just focused. I pulled out my bag and got to work. Hidden cameras. Tiny, discreet, placed in corners she wouldn't think to check. One by the bed, another in the living room, and a third near the door to catch who was coming and going. By the time I left, the place looked untouched. Now all I had to do was wait. Chelsea had another booking in 3 days. And this time, I'd be watching. The next 3 days felt like a slow burn. Chelsea carried on as if nothing had changed, smiling, laughing, pretending our life was still what it used to be. She had no idea I had already been inside her little hideaway. No idea that, in just a few hours, I would be watching her every move. I kept my routine normal. Went to work, answered her texts, even let her kiss me goodbye that morning without hesitation. I might stay late, she said casually over breakfast, scrolling through her phone. Lots to get done. I sipped my coffee, nodding. Take all the time you need. She smiled, pleased that I wasn't questioning her. By noon, she was gone, and by 12:30, I was watching. I sat in my truck, parked a few blocks from the Airbnb, my laptop balanced on my lap. The live feeds from the cameras flickered onto the screen, each one giving me a different angle of the room. Then, at exactly 1:07 p.m., the door opened. Chelsea walked in, dressed effortlessly casual, ripped jeans, a loose sweater, hair pulled back in a way that looked unintentional but wasn't. She set her bag down, moving with familiarity like she had done this a dozen times before. My hands tightened into fists. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't double-checking anything. That meant she wasn't alone in this. Whoever she was meeting had been here before. I waited. She pulled out her phone, typed something quickly, then sat on the couch, crossing one leg over the other. 5 minutes passed, then 10. At 1:19 p.m., the door opened again. A man stepped inside. Tall, confident, dressed well, but not overdressed. The kind of guy who knew he didn't have to try too hard. He closed the door behind him, and Chelsea smiled. I felt my entire body go still. I knew that smile. It wasn't the polite, friendly one she used in social settings. It wasn't even the fake one she had been giving me lately. It was real, familiar. I exhaled through my nose, forcing myself to stay calm. Chelsea stood up, brushing a hand through her hair as she walked toward him. He said something. There was no audio, but I could see the way his lips moved, casual, easy. Then she laughed. My stomach twisted, but I kept my breathing steady. I recognized him now. Ethan, her ex. The one she swore was nothing. The one she claimed she hadn't spoken to in years. I closed my laptop carefully, staring out the windshield, my heartbeat steady. I had my answer, but now I needed to decide what to do with it. I closed the laptop and set it on the passenger seat, exhaling slowly through my nose. I had the proof. There was no more guessing, no more suspicion, no more second-guessing myself. Chelsea had been lying. She had been meeting Ethan, her ex, the same guy she swore was just part of the past, just a mistake from years ago. The same guy who, according to her, meant nothing. But the way she smiled at him, the way she laughed so easily in that Airbnb, told me otherwise. I sat in the truck for a long time, staring at the dashboard, letting the weight of it settle. I wasn't surprised, not really. I had known, deep down, for weeks. But seeing it with my own eyes? That was different. I could have stormed inside right then. Could have kicked the door open, thrown accusations in her face, watched her scramble for excuses. But I didn't want an argument. I didn't want another explanation. I wanted something worse. I wanted consequences. By the time I pulled out of my parking spot, my mind was already working through the next steps. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of thinking she could talk her way out of this. She would never see it coming. I spent the next few days preparing. First, I transferred all the money from our joint accounts into my personal one. Chelsea wouldn't notice right away. She rarely checked finances, always assuming I had it handled. That was her first mistake. Next, I reached out to a lawyer. I wanted everything set in motion before she even knew what was happening. The house, the assets, everything tied to me. Then, I set up the final blow. Chelsea had been planning a live stream for her travel blog. A big event, something she had been promoting for weeks. A chance to connect with her audience, share her love for adventure, and the incredible support she received from her husband. That part made me laugh. She had no idea that, during that live stream, I'd be uploading the video from the Airbnb footage straight to her audience. I imagined it now. Her sitting there, smiling, talking about how much she loved me, how wonderful our marriage was. And then, right in the middle of it, the feed would cut to her with Ethan. The lies would unravel in real time. her perfect image crumbling in front of thousands of people. By the time she realized what had happened, it would be too late. She wouldn't just lose me. She'd lose everything. Chelsea had no idea that the walls were closing in on her. She still kissed me goodnight, still sat next to me on the couch, scrolling through her phone like everything was normal, still carried on with her perfect little lie, completely unaware that I'd already set her downfall in motion. Her live was scheduled for Saturday night, a big event. She had been promoting it all week, teasing special announcements to her followers. She called it a chance to connect with her audience, to show them a glimpse into her real life. The irony almost made me laugh. I spent Friday making sure everything was set. The money was transferred. The house paperwork was updated. The lawyer had assured me everything was locked in place. Chelsea wouldn't just lose me. She'd lose the life she thought she had secured. And then I finalized my revenge. I had edited the Airbnb footage carefully, cutting it down to just the essentials. Chelsea welcoming Ethan inside, the way she smiled at him, the way she leaned into him, the undeniable familiarity between them. No excuses. No way to explain it away. The file was ready. Now all I had to do was wait. Saturday night arrived, and Chelsea was in full performance mode. She set up her ring light, adjusted her camera, checked her angles. She had poured herself a glass of wine, her favorite silk blouse draped effortlessly over her shoulders, looking every bit the picture-perfect influencer. I sat in the next room, pretending to watch TV, waiting for the right moment. She went live at exactly 8 p.m. Thousands of people flooded in, the chat scrolling so fast it was impossible to read everything. She beamed at the camera, her voice dripping with warmth. "Hey everyone, I'm so excited to be here with you tonight. We have so much to talk about." I smirked, fingers hovering over my phone. She spent the next 10 minutes talking about her latest trips, her favorite destinations, the future of her brand. Then she got to the part that made my stomach twist. "And of course," she said, flashing that perfect smile, "I have to take a moment to appreciate my incredible husband, Nathan." I clicked the upload button. The live stream stuttered for a second. Chelsea frowned slightly, her eyes flicking off camera. Then the video played. The chat exploded instantly. Messages flooded the screen, questions, shock, disbelief. Chelsea's smile froze as the footage continued. Her stepping into the Airbnb, Ethan walking in behind her, the way she touched his arm, the way she laughed at something he said. The video was silent, but it didn't need sound. It was damning enough without it. Her face went pale. "Nathan," she whispered, barely audible. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "Something wrong, sweetheart?" She scrambled to end the stream, her hands shaking. Her audience had seen everything. The comments were still pouring in, people demanding explanations, betrayal turning into outrage. Sponsors were backing out in real time. Her brand deals were crumbling. She turned to me, her breathing uneven. "What did you do?" I tilted my head. "I just gave your followers the glimpse into your real life that you promised." Her mouth opened, then closed. She knew. She knew she had lost. And I wasn't done yet. Chelsea's face was frozen in horror, her eyes darting between me and the screen as if she could somehow undo what had just happened. Her fingers trembled over her laptop, but it was too late. The damage had been done. Her audience had seen it. The perfect, curated image she had built for herself had shattered in real time, and now she was just sitting there, exposed, humiliated, ruined. The live stream was still running, the chat exploding with thousands of comments. "Is this real? No way. OMG, she's been lying this whole time? Nathan did her so dirty. Respect." Who's the guy? Her followers, the people who had adored her, were turning on her. Chelsea finally found the strength to shut her laptop. She sat there for a second, motionless, before slowly lifting her head to look at me. "You," her voice cracked. "You did this." I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "You did this, Chelsea." I just made sure everyone saw it. Her breathing was uneven, panic setting in. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" I smirked. "Yeah, I took away the one thing you care about, your reputation." She shot up from her chair, knocking over the wine glass she had set on the table. Red liquid spilled onto the floor, but she didn't even notice. Nathan, we need to talk about this. Right now. I shook my head, pushing off the doorframe. There's nothing to talk about. She stepped toward me, desperation creeping into her voice. Yes, there is. You can't just destroy everything like this. We can fix it. We can control the narrative. Damage control, you know? We can tell people it was a misunderstanding that you... I let out a sharp laugh. A misunderstanding? Are you kidding me? I watched you meet up with him. I saw you smiling at him the way you used to smile at me. Chelsea flinched like I had hit her. I took a slow breath, my voice steady. You didn't just cheat on me, Chelsea. You built an entire secret life behind my back. The heirlooms, the lies, the careful little cover stories. You really thought I wouldn't figure out? Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't care. I was stupid, she whispered. I nodded. Yeah, you were. She reached for my arm, her touch hesitant. Nathan, please. We can fix this. I don't want to lose you. I pulled back. You lost me the second you decided to lie. Her face crumbled. I'll stop, okay? I'll do whatever it takes. Just don't leave me. I tilted my head, studying her. Is that what this is about? Me? Or are you just scared because your followers saw who you really are? Her lips parted, but no words came out. That was my answer. I exhaled, stepping back. I already talked to a lawyer. The divorce is filed. I moved all the money into my personal account. And the house. I smirked. It's mine now. You should probably start packing. Chelsea's entire body went still. You what? You heard me, I said calmly. By tomorrow morning, I want you gone. A tear slipped down her cheek, her hands clenching into fists. You can't do this. I already did. She let out a broken sound, part sob, part disbelief. Where am I supposed to go? I shrugged. Maybe Ethan has a spare couch. Her breath hitched. I watched her for a moment, then turned toward the door. I'm done here, Chelsea. You want to live a double life? Well, now you can do it without me. She sobbed, but I didn't look back. I walked out of the room, out of her mess, out of the lies she had built. And I wasn't coming back. Thank you for listening to the end. I hope you enjoyed it very much. Don't forget to give a like, and tell us in the comments what you would do in such a situation.